Welcome to the Follow D Money podcast. This week's guest is the wife of a good friend of mine.
I like that.
And she is currently running for Indiana House, District 32, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And where is District 32?
It is the southern portion of Clay Township and Carmel, and
Oh,
then
okay.
the northernmost portion of Washington Township in Indy,
Okay.
and Delaware Township and Fishers. So it's a nice little melting pot of a district.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a nice, I like that area, north side,
Yep.
pretty much. Yeah. Victoria Wilburn.
Dr.
Welcome.
Dr.
My bad.
Wilburn.
My bad. Dr. Wilburn in the building. Do not, that you earned that.
Yes, I did.
You earned that. You're
Yep.
going to get it, doctor.
I love that.
All right.
I'm just joking.
No, great. So I want to start. I normally ask people, what is their history? I want to know your professional history and your educational history.
Okay.
Okay.
I like that.
All right.
I don't even know where I should start with that, though, because I think every professional trajectory starts with a personal experience.
Okay.
I really do feel that.
Yep.
So when I was little, I had a condition, and I still have it. It's called scoliosis.
Okay.
Where you have a curvature in
Yep.
your spine.
I think I'm pretty sure
Do
I
you?
had it. Yeah.
So mine was severe enough where I needed therapy.
Okay.
So I, at a really young age, was doing physical therapy for about 5-10 years until I had like a nice growth spurt and it kind of straightened out my spine to a nice little degree. But I was in and out of physical therapy my whole childhood.
Okay.
And I knew from that experience that I wanted to be that therapist on the other side.
Yeah.
So I only looked at colleges that had physical therapy programs. So I'm like looking at all these 5-year programs. At that point, it was like you needed a master's to practice physical therapy. Now you need a doctorate. But I was only looking at those schools. And so the deal was with my parents, because they put 4 daughters through college before me.
Yeah.
And when it came to number 5, they're like, whoever gives you the most money, child, is where you will go. So I was like, okay, whoever gives me the most money. So I can apply to any school, and whoever gives me the most money, that's where I'm going to go. And they're like, yeah. So I applied. I grew up on the northwest side of Chicago, the suburbs, and I applied to schools everywhere: Colorado, California, St. Louis, Boston. And they were like, there's just no way she's going to go to this like local state school.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting almost a full ride to Boston University
Wow.
to study physical therapy.
Okay.
So I was really excited about that opportunity. And I got into Boston, loved it.
Right.
Loved the city, loved the vibe. Hated physical therapy.
Really?
I did.
Like the whole schooling?
Yeah. So the first
Wow.
year they make you take all these hard sciences, and I really just felt like this disconnect.
Yeah.
But the courses that I loved were all like psychology based.
Okay.
So in your second semester, you take this course called Intro to the Health Professions, and they're all the different healthcare professions: physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, rehab sciences, all these professions. And I had never heard of occupational therapy.
Right.
But when we started learning about it, I was like, that's me. That's who I am.
Okay.
So occupational therapy is this wonderful discipline that is like a combination of art, science, and psychology. And the whole philosophical view of occupational therapy is that a person will rehab when something is meaningful to them. So when you assess a patient, you find out what's meaningful to them. What do they want to get back to doing? So you see these individuals at traditional settings like hospitals and clinics, but you'll also see them in like mental and behavioral health centers and the school system.
Yeah.
And so I love that approach, because I don't want to do just rote exercises every day.
Yeah.
I want to play, or I want to do sports, or I want to be, a student. How can you get me back to doing that?
Yep.
And so I loved that. So when I called and told my parents, my dad was like, you want to help people find jobs? And I was like, no. So I did the whole education. And my last year of schooling, that's when I met my husband, Christopher.
Yep.
What a lot of people don't know about Chris is that actually he has his master's in vocal performance.
Yeah, well, they know from my last episode. Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah, so when we met each other, he was finishing his master's and I was finishing my OT school. And, we landed in Indiana because Christopher was with the African American Arts Institute with the IU School the IU School of Music, Jacobs, right?
Yep.
And I kind of came kicking and screaming to Indiana. I'm not even going to lie. It was a hard
Most
leave
people do.
from Boston. I was like, what is in Indiana? But really quickly, we decided that this was going to have to be home because
Wow.
wouldn't you know, a year into our marriage, I was expecting.
Yeah.
So I had dreams and things. I was still really young. I was only 24 years old. And I'm
Yep.
like, I still want to go to grad school. I want to do these things. And I really am just so blessed and lucky for Chris because he's like, you can still do all those things.
Right.
And I think that's so important in a partnership is to
It
have
is.
somebody that sees your dreams, knows your dreams, and wants you to achieve those dreams. So
Yep.
right after I had our first daughter, I enrolled in a graduate program at University of Indianapolis.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have my master's and doctorate in health science.
Okay.
So we were having children. I was working part-time, and I was going to school on the weekends.
Okay.
Like a straight grind.
Dang.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
2006 to 2014, I was on the road to, my master's and then my doctorate. And yeah, that's, kind of the professional personal trajectory there.
But
So
how did politics translate into that story? Like I didn't
Yeah.
hear.
No, I mean, I think that's a great question. So the degree of health science is really this awesome blend between like health policy, healthcare administration, and knowing like the healthcare system,
Yep.
right? And so you need people like that because
Correct.
the healthcare system is so complex. And
Yes.
so when I started in academia, I actually was an adjunct professor, first at University of Indianapolis, and I was there for about 5 years, and then a position opened up at IUPUI. And I was like, oh, they are the urban school in Indianapolis. Like,
Yeah.
let me go ahead and kind of put my hat into this game. And
Mhm.
so being there, my main role is to be a community engaged researcher.
Okay.
And what that is that, you partner with community organizations to help them solve pressing issues, utilizing like a methodology, a base, right? And the population that I was really most interested in serving, and I still am, and this is, current to this day, are people with mental and behavioral health issues,
Yep.
mainly adolescents.
Yep.
And if you have, been paying attention at all to the news lately, the Surgeon General just said that our youth are in mental health crisis.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't know that.
absolutely.
Dang.
And so the things that really affect Indiana at the time, and still do, obviously post-pandemic, we're seeing huge hits of data, but is the opioid epidemic.
Yes.
And so my community partners are two really amazing organizations, three actually, Overdose Lifeline, which provides naloxone training and does a lot of amazing things in the community. We've created this beautiful camp together
Yep.
for children that are impacted by substance use disorder. Hope Academy, which
Yep.
is Indiana's only addiction recovery high school for youth that are in active recovery and trying to figure out what life is like as a teenager in recovery.
Yeah.
And then Reach for Youth, which is a mental and behavioral health organization that serves really a large Medicaid population.
Right.
So those organizations are critical to keeping Indiana healthy and safe. But with every study, with every collaboration, what I really found out was that the outcomes to Indiana are really related to bad policy. And I was wanting to figure out, like, where do I go with this?
Right.
Like, my job as a researcher can only go so far.
Correct.
I need to be at the table making the policy because our policy is really flawed.
Right.
We rank 45th in the country for mental and behavioral health access out of 50 states.
And how many people do you assume have your perspective making laws?
I can only maybe think of off the top of my head 2
Yeah, I'm going to say
legislators.
not a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And being a woman, I think, also brings a different perspective.
Absolutely.
And then being a woman of color also
Yeah.
brings another perspective.
Absolutely.
So we need our state house to look like our living rooms.
Yeah.
Right? I
Yeah.
mean, this isn't a job that you're supposed to have in retirement.
Right.
This is a job that you're supposed to have where you know the issues of your community, where you're
Yep.
going to advance the voice of your community,
Yep.
and you're going to figure out the data that is going to help inform these policies.
Yep.
So, I mean, lay people don't know kind of what kind of healthcare crisis we're in Indiana, even before COVID.
Right.
We're 45th in public health funding.
Wow.
So, I mean, we're not giving money in investing in our healthcare. And I was speaking at a recovery conference earlier this fall, and I was on a panel with a really esteemed researchers, just really grateful to even be in that space. And we were taking Q&A from the audience, and somebody had talked about, like, what is it that's going to create real change? And I
Yep.
said, well, we need to stop bragging about our budget surplus
Yeah.
and investing
Start using that.
and start investing in
Yeah.
community health programs.
Absolutely.
And, it doesn't matter that we have an exorbitant amount of money when we're all dying.
No.
And we're all dying.
Right.
When you can't find a healthcare provider in your county that specializes in anything from OBGYN to mental health, that's a problem.
Yes.
That's a problem. And Indiana is really, it's so unfortunate because we attract a lot of really stellar students, right?
Right.
IU, Purdue, Butler, we have all these amazing higher education institutions,
Yep.
but nobody's staying.
Dang.
So we're educating these students, but there's a mass brain drain in Indiana that's happening.
So why are they leaving?
Because it's not really advantageous for them to live here.
Right.
Unless you're going to, start a family right away and buy a really economical home. What's the incentive of being here? We have really poor conservative laws, right?
Yeah.
We have some issues with violence, especially in our city.
Yep.
We don't have the policy that keeps people safe, like common sense gun laws. And, the pay scale isn't adequate. So,
Right.
if you're a woman and a Latina like myself, you're going to make the lowest pay in the country here living in Indiana.
Wow.
So we don't have competitive salaries.
Yeah.
And so that's, what's the incentive to stay here? So, we really need to be thinking about how to keep our workforce staying in the state. So that was my desire and passion, and kind of the stars aligned, and this new district was formed, and I was approached by some incumbents and, off the recommendations of people because I'm doing the work in the community.
Yeah.
So when I meet with people in politics, I'm like, well, where have you been? And I'm like, I've been doing the work.
Right.
Where have you been?
Yeah.
And the fact that
Yeah.
we don't know each other yet.
Yeah.
So, I want to take that community advocacy to the next level. And I think I can represent this new district to the best of my ability by listening to the people that I want to represent.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we've really gotten away from in politics is, self-serving interests. We need to really be listening to our constituents. So that's the people that elected us, and that's what we need to be moving forward. So
True.
Yeah.
So when you win and go into the House, like what is it that you're going to bring? Like what is it that makes you stand out amongst your peers in that arena?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've talked about the healthcare space, right? So
Yep.
just knowing kind of the ins and out of, we haven't increased our Medicaid provider rate
Okay.
in forever,
Yeah.
right? So we're not incentivizing the top healthcare professionals to treat our most vulnerable. That's an issue.
Yeah.
That's a problem, right?
Right.
We have to think about how to keep our public health workforce in our state. So how do we incentivize that? There are other states that do really incredible things like student loan forgiveness at the state level so that they can keep and attract a young talent pool in their state
Yep.
with a commitment of, if you stay here X number of years, we'll forgive X dollars of your loans, which I think, is a fantastic idea.
Yep.
And then really partnering with organizations like I'm doing now and hearing kind of what those solutions could be. So there's really like 3 topics, 3 pillars or tenets that I'm really focusing on.
Yep.
So one is public education and special education funding in particular.
Yep.
As a therapist that I said, you can work in the school systems. What a lot of people don't know is that if you actually have a child that's receiving special education services, they're probably one of 100 per a therapist caseload.
Wow.
And those are mandated services, right? Those are services that our children need in order to function, to learn, to grow. So there's no, it's no surprise that our high school graduation rate's not that good either.
Dang.
And we're in the year 2022.
Yeah.
So we have to invest in our public education school systems, and we have to invest particularly in special education and put caps like other states have on the amount of students a therapist can see per session.
Yeah.
It's critical.
Well, I mean, you can't overwork the therapist and then not have enough not have enough therapists for kids.
Right. And you
Like
need
that
to,
just doesn't make sense at all.
And you have to inform the parents too.
Right.
Right. So having an understanding of what your child needs and how we're going to service these children and how we're going to make them the most successful is a partnership.
Right.
So when you have one therapist representing 100 families, what is how much
Yeah.
does your voice matter?
Right.
So we really have to get behind our
And
special
how involved
education.
can that therapist be when it's 100 families?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the therapists don't want that.
Mhm.
So they look at neighboring states like Ohio, or they look at neighboring states like Illinois, and they're like, how come there's a cap on the number of students that they have and there's not here in Indiana?
How are they paid? Are they paid well?
No, school therapists are actually paid. And this is another thing, like there's a correlation between teacher pay. So that's another thing that I want to be, advancing and putting to the forefront is that we have to make sure that we're adequately paying our teachers and administrators. So when you're a therapist working in the school system, your pay parallels teacher pay. So our therapists actually take a cut in working in the school system
Wow.
because it's less than what they would be making at a hospital.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to teachers, I think that we really don't value what they do.
Yeah.
And I mean, and I'll just use my own personal experience, but I think that as a young kid, when you're taught by a teacher who loves their job and who
Yeah.
is passionate, what that does is it frames how you learn in the future.
100%.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
Like you have a kid who has a teacher that they respect, they love, they see him doing it, and then that teacher is showing this kid how to learn, how to receive information, how to accept that. And we don't value teachers enough to make sure all teachers are that teacher.
Yeah.
Because we'll get a bunch of teachers who are just going there and trying to get home to happy hour, and those kids, that's how they learn.
Well, I think what's more accurate is that those teachers are going home and they're going to a second job.
Right.
So, that's the part that
Yeah.
really gets me is that
They're tired.
They're tired.
Yeah.
I want my teachers coming to school excited
Yeah.
about what they're doing.
Absolutely.
It's not only about the learning piece, it's the social emotional piece as well.
Yes.
So when children have trusted adults in their lives where they feel safe and comfortable with, not only are they going to learn, their brain's going to be in a better position to
Yes.
learn,
Yes.
but the things that might affect them throughout the school day or even some things they might be battling at home aren't going to be as egregious because they know that they have got a teacher at school that knows them
Yes.
and loves them and cares for them and they
Yes.
feel safe with.
Yes.
But when the teacher comes to the classroom tired or stressed,
It
that
reflects.
emanates through
Yeah,
the
yeah.
classroom,
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
So, teachers are vital. I grew up a public school kid,
Yeah.
right? So if a little girl like me can achieve these big things like running for office on a public school education,
Hey.
everybody deserves that same bar.
Yes.
So that's the one I'm really passionate about. I'm passionate about keeping our public health workforce, in our state like we talked about.
Yep.
And I'm passionate about public safety.
Okay.
And that, from my husband. He was a proud IMPD member,
Yep.
for 13 years.
Yep.
And there's nothing that could strip away the service that he, committed to our community.
Indeed.
And so with that, recognizing that there are many, Blue families and residents that want safe communities. So how can we achieve that? Number one, common sense gun laws. Number two, crime prevention by community design. So reinvesting in our parks, our green spaces, our trails, adequate lighting. That's an equity factor,
Yep.
right? So when
Yep.
people can actually have a place to go to and look forward to, that's going to decrease those violent crimes or violent activity.
Yep.
When there's an investment in the community. So that we've got some ideas.
I think what you just said, it kind of promotes pride.
Mhm.
And I think that when people take pride into their environment,
Yeah.
then you're going to create a less hostile environment as well, because everybody is they want to protect it, they want to take care of it. But when you don't invest in your area that you live in,
Yeah.
and that just shows that it looks like we don't care. So why would anybody else care if we don't care?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and I think that, yes, what you're talking about is what every community needs.
100%.
Period.
Yeah. And I think, this state is a critical win. It really is. This district is a critical win for the state,
Okay.
because we need a two-party system.
Yeah.
We need a two-party system in our state to really advance to the next generation,
Yeah,
right? We
yeah.
can't be doing things the way that they've always been done.
No.
And so we need that healthy dialogue. We need that healthy negotiating. We
Yep.
need to be looking at bills together,
Yep.
advancing things together. And so nobody wins when there's a supermajority,
Mm-mm.
And so we have to have two-party system. This is a must-win, and I'm excited about the opportunity to be, the first representative for this district.
Who are you running against, if anybody?
So right now I'm a field of one,
Good.
representing the Democratic Party.
Okay.
The Republican Party will put forward their candidate,
Yep.
and all I can do is run my best race,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So it's a couple of things I'm committed to during this race.
Yep.
I don't want it to change who I am.
No, it shouldn't.
I'm a mother of 3, and I love those kids with, everything in me.
Yep.
I love my students at the university, and so I'm, fully going to be engaged in the classroom there. And, I want to stay a committed wife, so that's not going to change me.
Yeah, that's what's up.
And I'm going to keep things positive.
Yep.
So, really the only race that concerns me is my race, and just
Good.
keeping things above board, because that's how I've been taught, and that's how I was raised. You attract more bees with honey. And
Yep.
I don't have any place or space to go negative about other candidates.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I wasn't even going to ask you nothing negative about it. Not at all.
I love that.
But I also want to know, because when you talked about your career path and you were
Mhm.
younger, you wanted to be a therapist, and you did a great job of translating how it turned political, because
Yeah.
you went into the healthcare system and you saw how it affected everyone.
Right.
So now, where do you want are you a politician now?
Mhm.
Do you feel like you're a politician?
Yeah. I think I'm an activist.
Okay.
Right. And I
Yep.
think people need to know that activists look like this.
Yes.
Right. So
Yep.
activists look like moms.
Yep.
Activists look like working professionals.
Yep.
Activists look like being a partner to a spouse.
Yep.
So I think we need to normalize that.
Yeah.
I think we have this perception of like who can be leaders in our state,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you see men, and when they're hardworking, when they roll up their sleeves, like, oh, that man is in it. He's in it to win it.
Right.
But as a woman running, I want you to take me serious at all levels,
Yeah.
right? So this is what a woman activist looks like.
Yep.
So, I don't know if I really consider myself a politician, but I'm definitely an activist, and I'm going to stay rooted there.
And do you see your political future remaining in Indiana, or could you be a president?
I mean, right now I'm focused on this race,
Yeah, I
right?
understand. But what I'm
Yeah.
saying is your aspiration to affect change nationally. You know what I mean?
Well, I think I'm already doing that.
Yeah.
Just speaking of activists, being an activist and really promoting advocacy, I do work with my national association. I sit on the board of directors there.
Okay.
Of note to that, I am the youngest first generation female on the board,
Right on.
right? So I got to be, bashing and breaking those ceilings for people that are coming behind me.
Absolutely.
It's never about what it is for me. It's about the opportunities I'm creating for the person behind me.
Yep.
So, with that, I was able to speak and testify in front of Congress
Nice.
about the Allied Health Workforce Diversity Act. And I think, when you're passionate about something, that's going to have a ripple effect. So do I think that I have influence nationally? Of course, because I'm passionate about, what I believe in and what I know is true. And so
Yep.
I think people know that. They see your genuineness. They know when you are passionate about something, they know you're serious about it. You've taken your work to investigate it, to research the issue, to actually, look at things really objectively. And
Yep.
I don't think you can fake that. And so I think, politicians, I think people are looking for politicians to be vulnerable. So whatever that is that makes you passionate about, that's your platform,
Yeah,
right? So
Absolutely.
whether that's in politics or, like I said, in my classroom, I'm going to be who I am.
Good.
Yeah.
So, what makes you laugh? What gets you just belly laughing? Like, when's the last time you had a belly laugh?
That's such a great question. Well,
Because I love to laugh. Like, that's my thing. I love laughing.
My husband. I think honestly, that's really what attracted me to Christopher is
Okay.
that he makes me laugh.
Yeah, he's funny dude.
He is very funny, and he's just naturally funny.
Right.
And now that we have like Christopher 2.0 and my
Oh,
son,
do
like
you?
these two together brings me the best joy, and I feel like
Good.
the luckiest woman in the world
Good.
because they just play. They
Yeah.
just play all day. Like I said this morning, I was like, oh, I wish Jude had like a brother, you know,
Yeah,
because he's
yeah.
playing with all the neighborhood boys, and Chris is like, well, he has me, and I was like, well, I guess if that's how we see it, yeah, maybe. But no, well, you know, I think we love each other as a family.
Good.
And when my kids' friends will come over, and you know, we by far do not have the biggest house in the neighborhood.
Right.
By far do not have the most expensive and best things. By far, like there's just, you go in our house, it's super modest. And the kids just love hanging out because I think they feel our love. They just feel like they can be themselves in our home. And, you know, my kids will always say, Mom, so-and-so loved being here. And they
Yeah.
love that they felt like they were a part of the family. And
Right.
and that's what Chris and I do. You know, whoever comes to our dinner table is family.
Right. Well, I'll tell you this.
yeah.
And this is the first time I've met you, but the first time I met Chris, I felt like I met my brother.
100%.
And that's just
yeah.
that's just a genuine, like just very family kind of feeling that I get actually from both of you guys.
Aw.
So that's a really dope
Thank
kind
you.
of personality to have, and you both together, but kind of, you know, power couple. But that's good.
Yeah, I mean, he inspires me.
Good.
Right?
Yep.
I think we have a lot of shared similarities. You know, I think we both grew up from working class families. You
Yep.
know, I think we both were reared by people that sacrificed.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think that's a common thread just of who I am. I recognize the amount of sacrifice that my parents made for me. You know, my parents grew up super dirt poor.
Okay.
And they grew up in, you know, right around the time of, you know, the civil rights movement.
Okay.
And people don't talk about this a lot. And I know the, you know, Latinx population listening is going to appreciate this. There was a lot of hatred towards Mexicans,
Yeah.
Hispanics at the time as
Yep.
well. My dad always likes to say the border didn't cross, we didn't cross the border crossed us,
Right.
because our family lineage is from Texas
Right.
natively.
Right.
And so, you know, they
AKA Mexico.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I had to give somebody a history lesson on that the
Yeah.
other day. They're like, so I just, you know, question about your story. Like, are you an immigrant? And I'm like, no, actually, like Texas, California, Washington, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, all of that was
Yeah.
Mexico.
Yeah.
And those were, you know, that's our roots. That's where we came from. But, you know, my dad remembers not being able to use the same bathroom,
Wow.
you know, not being able to speak Spanish, you know, out and about in his
that's a
community.
narrative that's not really talked about.
It's not, you know.
Amongst civil rights, you know,
100%.
not a lot at all.
It's
Yeah.
not. And, you know, growing up, my parents didn't teach us Spanish because there was so much trauma.
Wow.
You know, my dad would get beat in school if they heard a Spanish word coming from his mouth.
Wow.
And so they had that, you know, sticking in their memory, but they grew up, you know, very poor, working the migrant circle.
Yeah.
In just Colorado, Wisconsin, here in Indiana. They picked the crops.
Yep.
For super low wages.
Oh, yeah.
In really deplorable conditions.
Yeah.
You know, and it wasn't until the work of Dolores Huerta and Cesar Chavez that things kind of became a little bit more amplified about the injustices to farm workers. This is how we get our food in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, farm workers still aren't paid a minimum wage.
Wow.
Farm workers are paid by the amount of crops they pick.
That's crazy.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
It's super crazy. It's crazy in a pandemic.
Yeah.
It's crazy all the time.
Yeah.
And so, you know, my dad was always really vocal about the change of mobilizing a community and mobilizing what you're passionate about. And so, you know, when the industry boom happened in the early 80s, even before that, early 70s, they moved to Chicago and he became a tradesman. And he did a super humbling task, and he was a cement mason worker. And so you see the guys smoothing out the cement
Yep,
in their
yep.
hands and knees. That was my dad.
Yep.
And he always took a lot of pride in what he did.
Good.
And I love that about them. My mom wasn't able to finish the 8th grade. She had to work for her family
Yep.
and to bring in income. And so my mom is not a high school graduate,
Wow.
but her diploma, her cosmetology diploma, was the first degree to ever hang in our home.
Dang.
Yeah,
Congrats to her.
she
Yeah.
became a successful businesswoman, and together they were like, we want more for our children.
Wow.
And so I like, my dad reminds me constantly, like, you live on the shoulders of people that are hardworking.
Yeah.
and who are always proud of who they are.
Yeah, and
and
that's a
who
part of you.
100%,
Yeah.
and who they represent in their community.
Yep.
So I'm just looking forward, to kind of carrying on their lineage and their legacy in this run too. And I think it's wild for them to see me do this, right? It's wild for them to see me step into these spaces, but they
Yep.
always tell me they're not surprised.
Well, I think a nod to you and a lot of people like you is the fact that when we talk about perspectives, look at where you are now and how you live now. And I'm not saying that you are super rich, successful, but your perspective now is different than the perspective that you had when you were little.
Yeah.
But you know what? You have those two perspectives.
hmm
And you're going to be in the house with people who don't have those. They have one.
That's so true.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And what they don't understand is you lived their life.
hmm
They didn't live your other life. So your two perspectives is the change that we need in these decision making. You know what I'm
and
saying?
I think that's why like Obama really resonated with all of us.
Yeah.
Right? Because he grew up, not in a two-person family.
Right.
He grew up, with a mom who was really committed about his education.
Yep.
He did some soul searching. He didn't know exactly what he wanted to do as soon as he
Right.
graduated high school. He still had student loan debt when he entered the White House.
Yeah.
I think that's why he really resonated with a lot of us. It's because it was absolutely this message of hope.
Yeah.
But it was absolutely a lot of us could see ourselves in him.
Right.
Right. And
Right.
so I'm hoping that's what my constituents see in me, right? Is that, fundamentally I'm a mother.
Right.
I know a little bit about something, right? Working
Yeah.
at the university.
Yep.
But I'm passionate about what I do and I'm hardworking.
Good.
And, you have concerns. I want you to bring them forward. I will listen. And let's make some change
Yep.
for the betterment of our state, right? We
Yep.
don't need to be in the lower tier all the time.
No.
We're better than that as Hoosiers, right?
It's almost like they're accepting being at the bottom.
Yeah. Well, I think people don't know.
Oh.
So when
they're not forced to make any change.
They're not forced to make any change, and
Yeah.
it doesn't affect them yet.
Right.
But that's what this pandemic is doing, is it's turning everything upside its head,
Yeah.
right? So now a lot of people are in recovery.
Yeah.
Now a lot of people need mental health services. Now we see the importance of our teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Now we know when that you don't have those mental health services, you are more likely to commit a violent crime, right? So just giving people ways to kind of live more wholly, right?
Yep.
So I think there's just so many opportunities for us coming out of this to make us a better state.
Good.
Yeah.
What would you consider has been your biggest challenge to date? Like, and that you had to overcome? Like, what's been your biggest obstacle?
That's a good question. My biggest obstacle. I think shout out to all police officers' wives.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's huge.
It is. It's completely. When people talk about, have you ever been in public service?
Yeah.
That was a question I got kind of right away from people wanting to get to know me as a candidate.
Mm-hmm.
And my answer to that is yes.
Right.
I served right along Chris. And I definitely think that we don't give our spouses and partners enough credit because we're the ones holding it down together to keep the ship moving. That's a family.
Right.
Right. So I'm super proud of Chris's service.
Yep.
But it did take a toll on me and our family.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of demands that we put on our public servants, it's huge.
Yeah.
The holidays were always hard because he'd be working.
Right.
Right. The 24-hour shifts when things got violent downtown.
Right.
That's hard.
Yep.
The overtime, all of that, it was.
And on top of that, you have to deal with the aftermath of it when they come home.
Yes.
And you have to let them know that they're human and they can have these emotions and be a certain way at home that they can't necessarily be out there.
Yeah, and in a way,
You had to be a therapist.
Yeah,
Or all these people.
100%.
All these people have to be
Yes.
therapists. Yeah.
It is. It's very true. And I also think the thing that we had to overcome was definitely the thing that's prepared us for this next stage in our lives, right?
Okay.
Because now it's my turn.
Right.
Right now,
Right.
it's my turn to
Right.
serve.
Right. And you showed him how to do it.
Yeah. Well, I think we
He
showed each
has the
other,
blueprint.
right? And
Yeah,
that was the
right.
first question, when I was approached and asked to run, that there was two things that were critical. Number one, was Chris going to be on board?
Yeah.
And number two, was my job going to be on board?
Okay.
So, I had to make sure that Chris was in this 100% with
Yep.
me. And I recognize that not everybody has spouses that are going to be, or partners that are in it 100%, because it's taxing.
Right.
So, but he had a reference point. I mean, we know what we know what service looks like.
Yep,
We
yep.
know that service can and should be messy because you're dealing with human beings.
Yep.
And we're all flawed.
And unpredictable.
Unpredictable,
Yep.
right? And we just don't know. And so that was something that we really journeyed together, was
Good.
his service.
Yep.
And so I would say that, because we grew up in that sense, right? We were a young family, we were having children, we were raising children, we were having more children. I was going back to school, then he started going back to school. And it was like all of these things, life doesn't stop
Right.
because you put on a uniform.
No.
And that's another thing too, is, humanizing people.
Yeah.
So just because we wear a badge, or you have, a little lapel pin that says you're an elected official, at the end of the day, we're all humans.
Yep.
And we all require empathy, and we all need a place to be vulnerable.
Yep.
And we all long for safety.
Yes.
And I think when we can all look at each other like that, whether, we've got headphones on, or we're, in the street somewhere, we're all humans craving acceptance.
Absolutely. Pro-vax, anti-vax, or what were you on that?
Oh, well, I'm a scientist, so obviously I'm pro-vax.
Okay. How do you think, in your opinion, if you were in charge of changing the narrative on COVID right now, what would be your plan?
Ooh, that's a complex question. I definitely, it's the answer is similar to before. It's making people aware.
Yeah.
So I just heard a comment from Todd Rokita the other day, and it was a super head scratcher. He said something to the effect of I've just stopped looking at the data. Right? And
sounds idiotic.
Right. I mean, as a scientist,
I
that's
stopped looking at the data.
Rule number one, right? You have to report out, even when, if I'm hoping that a study goes a certain way, right? And I'm really hoping that this is the way it wants to go, but if the data tells me different, that would be unethical for me to report results that, to just because I didn't think it would go that right. It does sound crazy. And so I think we need to inform whether that it makes us as a state look great or it makes us as a state look terrible.
Right.
People have to be able to make informed decisions, and it's the duty and responsibility of elected officials to give them that information.
Right.
This is not, something that's done in secrecy. We are taxpayers. That data is ours to know.
Yeah.
Right? So it's holding people accountable. So, step one is just informing people to make really informed decisions.
Yeah.
That's based very, in neutrality. My dad always likes to say numbers don't lie.
Yeah, they don't.
So, whether that's your bank account or COVID numbers.
Yeah.
Numbers don't lie.
Well, when you say the COVID numbers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of argument about the COVID numbers being inaccurate or hospitals trying to skew their numbers for money and all that stuff. As a scientist, what do I say to people about that?
So when I have the chief medical officer of Eskenazi Health, which is, Health and Hospital Corporations, it's our Marion County health system, right?
Yep.
One of the largest in the state.
Yep.
When I have them taking out one-page ads in the Indy Star Sunday paper, pleading people to get vaccinated because the situation is dire.
Yeah.
And we're not only having to call the Navy at this point, right? And the National Guard. I'm unsure of what more information you would need.
Yeah.
And so
I just feel like some people just don't want the information. They rather just take what they've been told and run with it. I'm just confused sometimes because I like to listen. I like to know what happened, but people seem to tell me that, they don't believe what they're hearing because it's about money. It's not about the numbers of COVID.
I really have a hard time swallowing that healthcare professionals who took an oath to preserve life,
Yeah.
right? At all costs. Money is not an issue at that fact and that point, right?
Yeah.
So you have got to trust the people that are in front of you. And by the way, everybody, the vaccine is free.
Right.
The medical bills that you're going to accumulate
Right.
for not getting vaccinated and putting yourself at a really high risk,
Right.
those will cost you something at that point.
Yes.
So, I think we have to really just make educated decisions
Yeah.
and being smart on the process. And right now, what the evidence shows us, and this can change tomorrow or the next day, but right now, we know that people that are vaccinated and also boosted, so 2 doses plus 1, are less likely to enter the hospital, right? Those numbers don't lie.
At bare minimum, that's enough to get it.
Yeah, exactly.
At bare minimum.
Nobody wants to pay an ER bill.
That's so crazy.
And you're probably going to be waiting in the ER
That's
for,
so crazy.
yeah.
That's the best, most accurate, most down-to-earth way of saying you should get it.
Yeah.
And people still won't believe it.
Well, and I think we've polarized everything.
We have.
Right? We've made
it two-sided.
Yes.
And it's like, I'm just not going to get it because I believe this and I follow this and I love this.
Right.
So I'm never going to get it because I don't feel that way. I don't trust this.
Well, and I think what a lot of people forget too is any of us that work in any healthcare profession have to show evidence of vaccines before COVID.
Right.
So, this is nothing new. This
Yeah.
is not new. I don't care what people are trying to tell you.
Yep.
We had to show not only evidence of current vaccination, but a criminal background check
Yep.
to enter a healthcare profession.
Right.
These are not new criteria.
Right.
And we've made it something different, and it's just we've done each other a disservice.
Right.
We really have.
I agree.
So yeah, I'm going to stick to science all day, every day.
Okay. And I'm just going to throw my vaccination shout out there. I just think the only reason why a lot of people should just get it is because you will also not affect another person, right? Doesn't it kind of?
I think it's still important to mask as well.
Yes.
I think masking's important.
Yes, but we have people who can have COVID,
Right.
have no symptoms,
Mhm.
and they can give somebody
Yes.
COVID who will be affected differently than they.
Yes, 100%.
So if you're vaccinated
Mhm.
and mask up still,
Mhm.
but you have to be aware that you could affect somebody where you're affecting their hospital bills, their life, their livelihood.
Yeah.
And if you're vaccinated, you lessen that as well.
Yes.
Not just the fact of you going to the hospital, but someone else's life could not be ruined because you walked by or you were in a club with them, you drank a drink after them or something like that.
Yeah.
Like being vaccinated lessens that.
100%.
Yeah.
100% it does.
Yeah, just be a good human.
Just be
It's
kind.
actually being kind to
Yeah.
others, getting the vaccination, even though you're healthy and all this stuff. You might not die if you got COVID, but yeah. Anyway.
I like the health questions. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I have another question.
Okay.
Who, and we're going to leave family out.
Okay.
Who would be one of your biggest heroes of all time?
My biggest hero of all time.
And you can have many, but I just want to know, like, if I want to ask who are your heroes, I want to know you can just name a hero, and I want to know why that person is has such an important impact on your life.
Yeah, that's a good one. Honestly, I've already said her name, and she's not family, but I'll say it again. Dolores Huerta.
Yeah.
She was a powerful woman who had to stand behind powerful men.
Yeah.
And I don't think she gets enough credit in history for what she's done to advance rights.
Yep.
She was way ahead of her time in regards to community organizing and mobilizing. Again, I kind of resonate with her upbringing, not really coming from much, and being this powerhouse
Yep.
in the United Farm Workers movement. So I would definitely say she is one of my like woman heroes, you
Okay.
know. Um, I'm trying to think too, as far as like who do I really
I know you got a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you said not family, you know, so I think that
Well, I
kind
know I like
of
people are shaped by their family.
Yeah.
Like you get a lot, and you even mentioned your parents and what they did
Yeah.
to create the person that you are today. So
Right.
that's obvious.
Yeah.
But there are influence that we have as adults, as young people, that influence us later in life as well, that we kind of aspire to emulate in a way
Sure.
that is not family.
Yeah.
And I know that there is a lot of people out there that have touched you in a way.
I mean, my high school track coach, I would say too,
Dope,
is just kind of
dope,
another person that comes to my
dope. I love
mind.
that.
Shout out to Coach Gillette.
I love that.
Yeah, he really invested in me early.
Yep.
And number one, made me fall in love with running. Number two, could see like my potential as a runner,
Yep.
you know, and just kind of paving that way as well. Fun fact, I've run the Boston Marathon 3 times.
Wow.
So, you know,
Impressive.
Yeah, well, impressive or crazy.
Yeah, both.
Both for sure. But I mean, I think he really introduced, you know, just running as a form of self-care,
Yep.
of health, to commit to something too, you know.
Yep.
And he just so believed in me just even then, like he would call me, he's like, you know, you're going to maybe be a little world changer. And
Dope.
I think people speak prophecy over your life too.
Yeah.
There was this, and gosh, I don't remember her name, but she's for sure a hero. I did some relief work in Haiti after the earthquakes there
Uh-huh.
as a therapist,
Okay.
right? There were obviously a lot of orthopedic
Wow.
injuries. And so we did a medical mission trip there. And I was rooming with a girl, and she just spoke just so much truth, I think, over my life.
Wow.
Too, you know, she was like, you're an amazing teacher.
Yeah.
Like, you're in the field and you're like training other Haitian healthcare workers, and you guys don't even speak the same language, but you are showing them like how to wrap and splint and cast and what to look for. And it's like blowing me away because I don't have that same gift. And
Yeah.
like, you are an educator. And I think she spoke that over my life too, because I hadn't really been thinking about like academia as a form of this is what I want to do.
Right.
But when somebody affirms your gifts,
Yes.
I think that's really, really powerful.
Yes.
So, you know, I think I can't think of any huge celebrity. There have been a lot of people that have come in and out of my life that just spoke truth over me
Yeah.
and helped me to really see myself for who I was. And so, you know, yeah, in that regard, I guess I do have a lot of heroes.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
How would you define success?
How would I define success? Man, I mean, I think success is being at peace with yourself.
Okay.
I think success is knowing that you're going to make a decision that people are going to love and some people are going to hate.
Yep.
And I like sleeping at night. And so I know that if I've made a decision that I feel good about because it's based and rooted in truth and, you know, a normative acceptance, like I want to be able to sleep.
Yeah.
And so I want to make sure that like I can always be at peace with myself.
Yep.
So having success is having peace.
Wow.
In all different areas of your
Yep.
life, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
financial peace, you know, peace with your health, peace with people in your family that you let in. I'm a really big proponent of mindfulness
Yeah.
and being mindful and attuned to like, why am I thinking this way?
Yep.
Or why did that negative thought come into my head? Or, you know, what have you? I think it's important to be at peace with who we are.
Yep.
Because then we can be more of a light for others.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, I think that a lot of people are going to listen to this and understand that you are what we need in the house making decisions for us. You represent how I feel about a lot of things. So, I mean, I'm sure that a lot of people can resonate with that. And just learning more about you personally helps make that decision easier.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
think so. I
Yeah.
think so, man. And I think there's so much more that unites us. I
Yeah.
really do than divides us. I mean, we all want to see our children succeed in life.
Yeah.
We all want to have a basic quality of life where we feel safe and understood and valued.
Yeah.
We all want to live in great communities.
Yeah.
These aren't far-fetched ideas, and that's, I think I just want to be true to who I am in this process, right? And so I can't promise you the world,
Right.
but what I can promise you is that I'm going to be like the hardest working person, and take a look at my track record, right?
Right.
So, I mean, I'm doing the work. I've done the work. I want to make Indiana a great place to live. I want to make Indiana a place where it attracts people that of all different schools of thought. They feel known and accepted here, and they all feel represented in some manner.
And make them
So
want to stay.
make them want to stay.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Okay. I got one final question for you.
Okay.
And this question is, if you were stuck on an island and you was just you only you, and you can only have one meal for the rest of your life. You can have an entree and 2 sides. What is that meal?
An entree and 2 sides. What is that meal? I'm going to have to stay Mexican on this, all right?
I probably would too.
And it is tamale season,
Ooh,
okay?
ooh,
So
ooh.
I'm going to go ahead and call out, I'm going to
Tamales.
call out Grandma's tamales, okay? I'm going to call out my mom's Mexican rice. And
Okay.
sorry, Grandma, you're probably turning over in your grave with that, but mom's rice is better. And I'm going to go ahead and call out some refried beans because,
Okay.
I'm a
Okay,
girl.
with
I'm
some
a girl with
cheese on
some
it?
root. No cheese.
No cheese on the refried beans?
No, you got.
Oh, come
We gotta
on.
go fat-free
I put
on that
cheese
one.
and sour cream on my refried beans.
Yeah, and also side note, being alone is what refuels me. So I
Okay.
actually love solitude.
I do too.
I love
I
solitude.
go to the movies by
Yeah,
myself.
and you put me on an island. I love water.
Okay.
So
you have Mexican food, a beach, and yourself.
There you go.
You're good to go.
I'm good to go.
Okay,
Yeah.
there we go. All right, now I want you to tell everybody to vote for you. I want you to shout out yourself.
I love
go.
that.
Go.
All right. Well, this is Dr. Victoria Garcia Wilburn. I am running for House District 32 in Indiana, and I would love it if you took the time to get to know me through this podcast, and I would be honored to have your vote. So thank you.
Oh, boom. Boom. Everybody, thank you for listening. It was a great time getting to meet you and know you and learn you. And I support you. I am there for you if you need me for anything.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's so sweet.
Absolutely. Please follow D-Money on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. Like, rate, comment. Thanks for everybody. Thanks, J.O. Boom, Chris, boom. We out.